Hey guys, welcome to another video. Today I'm doing another Doctor Who Miniatures expansion opening and review video. Today I am looking at Judoon. Now these are an interesting army of space police rhinos. Again, it's a three-figure expansion. So again, like all the others, you do basically need 3 copies of it to play a full team. Anything beyond that is really up to you, though you can technically get away with only running 2. These are a team I've had my eye on for a while, but never really got around to pulling the trigger on it. And then when it came to the Black Friday sale this year on the Warlord Games website, I couldn't resist just getting involved and ordering some of these. So I thought I'm never going to find them cheaper than that. Although they are quite cheap on Caliber Books. I can't quite remember for the life of me right now how much they actually cost. But they were cheap. I was thinking I'm never going to find them cheaper. I do want to play them, so we better just get them. So here we are, finally getting around to cracking them open. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the contents of the box, and then afterwards I'm going to talk about the extra cards that come in the base game for the Judoon, so that you can get a full taste of what they play like. Okay, so first of all, let's just pop this box open. This is one I opened earlier. We'll just slide this open and I'll show you the contents. Just put that box back there so we have this nice little Judoon backdrop, and I'll show you what we got. So we got the Gallifreyan sigil box. There was actually a question in the group about the packaging in Doctor Who. I think a lot of people were under the feeling of it's a bit too much. Like, you just don't need to do this. Like, you're wasting yourselves money. We'd be happy with plastic blisters. So the packaging might be getting a little bit worse in the future, but who knows? We'll see what they do. I certainly don't mind that. I think the packaging is incredible, but it not only makes it hard to throw away, but also we know for a fact that sometimes these products are delayed because they need to change all the packaging because it didn't get approved. That's why so many of the different packets have completely different designs. And yeah, well, I think we're all under the impression as well of, you know, if it gets it out faster, do a bit less. But anyway, okay, so today we've got this packed for us by Ronnie S. Thank you, Ronnie S, as always. There was actually a hair in this box, just a hair sticking out the top inside the plastic wrap. Thank you for that, Ronnie S. Okay, so we're going to just pop open the Gallifrey box and take a look at the sculpts. So first of all, we have one with the helmet on. So that is the sculpt on that. The detail on these dudes is really quite good. I think it's quite easy to forget how good the quality of these Warlord Games sculpts are, but they are actually incredible little miniatures. So there's the first sculpt. The next one we have here is another one with the helmet on, but this one is kind of holding his gun to his chest rather than sort of aiming. Is that a scanner in his hand? Yeah, he's aiming a scanner. He's holding a gun. So these are slightly different. And then finally we have the Judoon leader. Now with these, it's a little bit more disappointing. The kind of I'll elaborate in a second. I'll show you the sculpt first. Okay. So there is the helmetless Judoon leader. Now, obviously, you only want one Judoon leader because it's a Force Commander, it's unique, you can only have one. But because you're buying 3 of these sets, you're going to end up with 3 helmetless Judoon. So basically, what that's going to mean is you're going to have to paint up 2 helmetless ones as your 2-card recruit. As well, and do some kind of paint difference between your commander and those 2. It's a little bit of a shame, but I guess there's not really anywhere around that. With the way Warlord do things, you could buy even more Judoon and just leave the rest of these 2 and have all helmetless people, but that's just probably not going to happen. They're not going to stand up well because of the little pewter imperfections on the bottom of the bases. But I'll just give you one final little look at the minis here before we get into the cards. Okay, so the cards included in this expansion are pretty interesting. As usual, we get the 3 recruitment cards, the special recruitment card, and 2 adventure cards. But the Judoon actually have a lot more stuff going on that you already have in the base set. So that's pretty cool. So first of all, let's see what the Judoon leader does. So he has 4 movement, 3 resilience, +1 melee dice, +1 shooting dice. He comes in with 2 fate tokens. He is unique. He has wounds 1, rage, hunter, and force commander Judoon. Now, none of that is particularly fancy. And the Judoon themselves don't do anything particularly fancy. That is something I sort of want to get onto in a moment. However, the adventure cards jazz them up quite a bit. So let's take a look at the back of the card. So we've got Judoon Executioner Pistol. That's a range 6, 4 dice ranged weapon with energy. And we have a melee weapon of 2 dice and restraint. Then, as we see on the back, we've got Wounds, Unique, Rage, Commander, and Hunter, and Force Commander. So we're going to take a quick look at Rage and Hunter. Now, Hunter, I can tell you just off the top of my head, that is that you can move your full movement when engaging in melee. Rage. There we go. Okay. Oh, it just doesn't quite fit there. A character with this trait can reroll all results of jackets when resolving a melee attack. So that basically means they're going to win. The only way you are not going to beat your opponent in a melee attack if you can reroll all your jackets is if your opponent has significantly more dice than you to begin with. That is the only way you're not going to win that melee fight. So that's pretty interesting. We've got a full move melee and we can reroll all jackets. That's pretty interesting. As I say, the leader himself doesn't really do anything fancy, but that's basically it. So the Judoon are an army that's very powerful in melee. They don't get a lot of dice. They only have 3 dice, but you can do an awful lot with those 3 dice. Next up we have the Judoon Enforcers. Again, 4 speed, 3 resilience +1/+1, 1 fate token, and just rage and hunter. There's not really much else we can say about that. This is your two recruits unit. And as you might have noticed, it's also the helmetless guy. So thematically, in terms of figures, your Enforcer figures are going to match the card. However, these are the same guy. So, you know, that's not so great. But I guess you can only do something. They've only had so many appearances. They hadn't appeared in Jodie Whittaker's season when these came out as well, obviously. So, yeah. And the final card we have is Judoon. This is just the generic 4, 3 +1, 0, Rage, Hunter, and Agent to go on any team with the 3 stats. Now, a lot of the 3-figure boosters, something I said I would come back to, a lot of the 3-figure boosters do look a bit boring because they just kind of look like this, like stats and, you know, generic powers from the Time Vortex. Yep, no problem with that. However, it's the adventure cards and stuff that jazz them up. So a lot of these can look really boring from the outside, and admittedly, when I looked through this card pack, I was like, well, why did I think that was interesting? But when I looked at the sort of wider cards in the base game, you know, it becomes a bit more clear. And these are quite interesting. There's a lot of 3-figure expansions, I think, that just aren't very interesting. Like Clockwork Droids, for example. But, you know, I'll probably play them at some stage if I get to a point where I've not really got anything else to buy. So the first adventure card is You're Under Arrest. Discard this card at any time to detain any enemy character. Let's try that one again, shall we? Discard this card at any time to detain any enemy special character within 6 inches of your faction's Judoon leader. That special character cannot be activated until the end of the turn. Now, I will just quickly point out that that is a pretty good card. Anyone within 6 inches of your faction's Judoon leader, whether he can see them or not, doesn't matter. Just a blanket, that figure can't activate. That's pretty good in any game. What I will also point out is you're going to have 3 copies of this. So, do with that information as you will. It's a discard as well, so you can recycle this. Next we have Shadow Proclamation. This is a really good card as well. Exhaust this card to give all Judoon the Unstoppable trait for this turn only. Now, Unstoppable is pretty interesting as well. So let's get the guy to the Time Vortex back involved. Unstoppable. Characters with this trait can immediately remove an under fire marker by playing any 1 combat card from the player's hand. So essentially what you're telling me Judoon are is an army that have an ability to remove under fire markers for literally no reason. And also to stun characters for literally no reason. As well as being very proficient in just running up to you and hitting you one. That's very interesting. One of my least favourite parts of this game is under fire tokens and the mechanics of getting rid of them. So a card that just lets you get rid of them. For combat cards, which, if I'm completely honest, I never draw the good combat cards, and I never have what I need when I need it, and it very rarely makes a difference for me. Now, I don't really mind discarding them to get rid of under fire tokens, which will probably stop me from doing anything anyway. So that's a pretty good card. Again, I'd just like to point out, you're going to have 3 of them. Okay. The final card here, of course, is Judoon Reinforcements. This is the adventure card, which Judoon leader only, calls in some reinforcements, Rage Hunter. Brilliant. So that is everything you get in the pack. So I think it's a very interesting pack. I think, although a lot of the 3-figure expansions, the figures themselves look like it could be a bit boring, I think the actual adventure cards that come with them are interesting enough to give them something to go on. However, ultimately, I think it's the cards in the actual base game that give these guys a certain charm that makes you think that these are worth playing. And they get quite a few cards in the base game. I don't know if they have more than average, but, you know, they have quite a few. So I'll just quickly go through everything in the base game that you get for them as well. So, as I say, you can get a full feel for what these guys can do. So, first of all, of course, you get Spare Judoon, Judoon Reinforcements, Judoon Enforcers, and Judoon Leader cards. You also, for some reason, this seems to be weird because you seem to get one card the same in the base game and one card slightly different in the expansions. So for some reason, you also get a You're Under Arrest card. So you actually have 4 copies of this, actually. I told a lie a minute ago. You actually have 4 copies of this. So you could just run 4 copies of this and just stun a load of guys and then slowly regroup them and just stun them. You could play Judoon Stun, you know, that's something you could actually do. And their faction ability has got something to do with arresting people. I won't get into that just now, but yeah. So you actually have 4 copies of this. So, you know, that's definitely something you could do. Another card that you get is Judoon Rockets. Now, this is a very interesting card. Discard this card to move up to 3 models from your faction to any location on the table. All rules are for type of terrain and distance to enemy models must be observed at the end of this movement. Now, jumping anything to anywhere on any game is pretty good. Next, we have a complete dud. What you might notice on the back of these cards is that none of them have any weapons. The ones that come in the base game, none of them have any weapons. And I can only assume that that's why this card was added to the base game, and then these were later errated to have the weapons on the back. But you've got a Judoon Executioner Pistol. All Judoon on your faction are also equipped with an Executioner Pistol. It's an energy weapon with 6 range, 4 dice, 200 melee weapon. However, the weapon you actually get on the card is exactly the same, but it doesn't have the 200 restriction. So, you know, very, very odd, isn't it? That's just one of those weird anomalies that sort of exist in this game. Very bizarre, but yeah, so this is just another piece of card you're just never going to use. But, you know, it's an interesting relic to say the least. And then we have 2 final cards to go for. Let's go for the short one first. Discard this card to reroll any 1 failed shooting attack. Now, granted, it would probably be quite cool to have this card in these, so you could have 3 copies of this. But that's a pretty good ability. Again, it's a discard, so you can, you know, you have a chance to win. So you have a chance to grab it back from the discard pile. It's a very good effect. Reroll any 1 failed shooting attack. It's nothing complicated. It's just a simple reroll. Nothing bad about that at all. And of course, this gives them a chance to be a bit more supreme in kind of ranged attacking, since they, you know, since they didn't. Since they, you know, their own abilities are so focused on melee. I find it hilarious that the Judoon weren't originally issued with blasters, or were only if you had the blaster card in your adventure card pool. Which is fair enough, because you would just do that, but I just find it funny that they don't actually have their own blasters. And the final card we have here is Scanner. Select 1 character in your faction and discard this card to sense all enemy within 12 inches. Add +1 die to all shooting roll against any scan miniature. So this has basically been this card +1 shooting roll, +1 shooting dice against basically anything on the board, because anything that is outside 12 inches, you are not going to be able to shoot anyway. unless you have a very high range weapon attached to one of these guys, which, if I'm completely honest, I do not think exists. So yeah, that's a pretty powerful card. You know, again, we can reroll any shooting attack against us as well. So I think that gives you a good taste of what the Judoon are all about and what they can do. In terms of the 3-figure pack itself, I think it's very interesting, but I do think it needs those cards from the base game to really make the Judoon stand out from the crowd, really. That being said, their ability to just kind of wreck things in like melee attacks does make them very interesting, but I definitely think that these guys are capable of standing on their own 2 feet. But for me, that's basically everything. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.